Welcome. This is the first class of 10 in preparation for the citizenship test, the 2025 version, the one that has 128 questions. I'm Elder Flater. My wife and I are completing a service mission in the Phoenix West Learning Center under the patronage of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. In my professional life, I am a retired officer of the Immigration Services, USCIS, after more than 20 years of experience. During my career, I interviewed about 2,000 people for their citizenship cases. There are some very good courses to learn more history and more English, but here we're going to focus on what you will need for the test. There is a version already online where I explain in Spanish, which some may find beneficial or which you might share with your friends. After this course is completed and placed online, I'll do one more only in Spanish for those who qualify to take the test in Spanish. So welcome again. Get paper and a pencil. Get ready to practice because we're about to get started. So before we start practicing for the test, we need to spend some time covering what some of the requirements are, requirements to apply and requirements to be approved, which aren't actually the same. We'll start with the general requirements to apply for citizenship. You need to have had your permanent resident card, your green card, for 5 years in general. And don't assume, check the date on your green card to confirm. You have to be at least 18 years old. You have to have been physically present in the United States more than half of the last 5 years. You cannot have had any long absences from the United States, typically of more than 180 days, which is about 6 months. Those can break your legal residency, and it will be presumed by the Immigration Service that you have abandoned your residency in the United States. There are certain exceptions. Now here's an interesting one. You have to have resided in your current state for at least 90 days before you submit your N400 application. That means, for example, you can't move from California to Arizona and 1 month later submit your form N400. It will be denied. You need to live in the state at least 90 days before you turn in that application. Now, in reference to the requirements that I've just mentioned, you can file 90 days early, except for the one about the current state. So you can send in your application 90 days before you hit the 5-year mark with the green card, for example, or 90 days before you turn 18. Now, if you're married to a U.S. citizen, then the things I mentioned in the previous slide about 5 years change to a 3-year requirement. You don't have to wait the full 5 years. So you don't, if you're a permanent resident living with your U.S. citizen spouse, you can apply after you've been a permanent resident 3 years. Your spouse must have been a citizen that full time. Even if you did not get your status, your green card, through that marriage, you can still benefit from this. Now, if you've been in the military or are still in the military, these requirements don't apply to you as far as waiting 5 years as a permanent resident and so on. The time residing in the United States does not apply. If you are applying based on your time in the military, be aware that you had to have had an honorable discharge to take advantage of that, and your military record will be reviewed. Now, going back up to the previous paragraph, some people working outside the United States can also be exempted from this, the time in the United States requirement. Those are difficult to obtain. Even some lawyers get messed up, so be sure and consult a experienced immigration attorney if you think you qualify. Now, let's move on to the requirements for being approved. Those were just the requirements to apply. To be approved, you have to pass the test. The civics test, history and government. You have to be able to read English, write English, and speak and understand English. Not like a university level, but a third grade elementary school level is what's generally described. Now, you have to show that you are a person of good moral character. And we'll spend quite a lot of time talking about what that means. Now, there are some English language exemptions. So when you apply, if you are at least 50 years old and have had your green card for at least 20 years, you can take the test in your native language. You can take the civics test in your language, have the interview in your language, and you're not tested on reading and writing in English. You will need to be prepared to provide your own interpreter at the interview. Also, if you are 55 years old, then you only need to wait 15 years as a green card holder to request this English language exemption. Now notice that do not file early if you're planning on requesting one of these exemptions. You have to wait until you are already 55 and already have had the green card 15 years or 50-20 in the other paragraph. Do not apply early or you don't get the exemption. If you're not sure of the date that you became a permanent resident, check the back of your green card. Now, certain people don't have to take the test if they can demonstrate that they have a disability that makes it too difficult for them to learn or to express themselves. Follow the instructions on the form N400. But prior to that, before you even apply, if you think that you have something that is so difficult that you can't learn, then you need to use form N648, and you need to take that to a doctor or a psychologist before you submit the N400. And then You get the results sealed from the doctor, and you send that together, mail it with the N400. Then if the officer says that the doctor's explanation is sufficient, then you won't have to take the test. You'll just complete the interview in your language. If the officer does not believe that the N648 is sufficient, then you will be given the opportunity to try and pass the test in English at that time. Now let's talk about the good moral character requirement. Fortunately, you don't have to be a saint. Like I put a picture of a saint here, somebody who's perfect. You don't have to be perfect. We'll talk a little bit about what it means to show good moral character, or to be a person of good moral character, and some of the things that will stop you from satisfying that requirement. Now, I do suggest that when you submit your form N400, that you include recommendation letters. Or if you don't send those in with your N400, I suggest you take some with you to your interview. And we'll talk more about that. But what is good moral character? So immigration will review any record you have of arrests, detentions, convictions, or immigration violations anywhere in the world. They will look at your immigration file. They will look at the results of your background check, which includes fingerprint checks, FBI records, Interpol, whatever. Might be records from your home country also. Now, immigration looks mostly at the 5 years before you filed, but they can look at any time. But they focus us on the 5 years before you filed, and includes up to the day of your ceremony to become a citizen. Don't do like one case that I heard about where the person had their citizenship test, they passed, they were so excited, they went out to celebrate, they had too much to drink, and they got arrested for drunk driving. And then when they tried to become a citizen, they said no, because you have a criminal charge pending. So don't do that. Now, during the 5-year period, even a minor violation of the law, a misdemeanor, could result in a denial of your application. So the 5-year period they look at very closely. Now, if you have had some sort of conviction and you're on probation or parole, that should be finalized before you file your form N400. And you might want to talk to an attorney about whether you should wait even longer. But if you are still pending, have not completed probation or parole, you will be denied. Now let's go on talking about what it means and what can affect you. A major violation in any country or a serious immigration violation can have an impact on your case, even if it was more than 5 years before you apply. Now, you are required to tell the truth on your application and during your interview. Lying under oath. Under oath is when you've promised the officer that you will tell the truth, is reason to deny your application. Because if you lie under oath, you're not a person of good moral character. Sometimes there are things that will be misunderstood by an applicant that will cause them to say something that is not correct, and the officer will say, "You're lying to me," and get the case denied. So make sure you understand clearly, and that's one of the reasons that we're doing these courses. One thing to be careful of is this word here, ever. Ever, notice it's in capital letters, it's in bold letters, ink, dark ink, large. That's to emphasize that you must consider your entire life, your whole life. If somebody says, have you ever been arrested? If you were arrested 50 years ago in your home country for when you were 16 years old for taking a Coca-Cola without paying for it, and they took you to the police station and arrested you, and you were stayed there one night, and it was 50 years ago, you have to tell them on your form and in the interview. Ever. Continuing. So here is one situation that I ran into, that I encountered a few times during my career. So everyone, before they apply for a citizen, became a permanent resident. And they had, in most cases, an interview related to getting the green card, the permanent resident status. Now, sometimes there was an old arrest or an old immigration encounter, deportation or something, but at the green card interview, the officer didn't know about it. And so an applicant didn't mention it. So when people go to the citizenship interview, they think the officer doesn't know about that. There is no record, so I'm going to say no, I've never been arrested. Do not assume that the naturalization officer does not know about it. Old cases frequently have been updated. That's because technology is now better at identifying fingerprints, recognizing people's faces, running checks based on your date of birth and see if there are other similar names or dates of birth. And so people will say, no, I was never arrested at their green card interview. And the officer says, okay, here's your green card. Then they come to the citizenship interview. They say, nope. And the officer says, well, I have the record because it's been updated and you're lying to me, and they're denied. Another case that I saw sometimes, another situation, maybe you did discuss an old case at your green card interview. Maybe the officer even made you go to court and bring a copy of the record and bring it, and it's in the file. Remember that the word ever does not have any exceptions. It does not say ever unless we already talked about it. It says ever, meaning at any time. So sometimes a person would think, well, they're asking me if I've ever been arrested or asking me if I've ever been deported. But that one time that I got arrested, at the green card interview, we talked about it, and I brought them the record, and they approved my case. So probably this officer today, they mean, have I been arrested any other time, more recently? But that is not what the officer is asking. The officer is asking, have you ever in your life had whatever it is they're asking about, an arrest, a deportation, or whatever it might be. You don't want the officer to accuse you of lying. So just be careful with that. Now, I mentioned recommendation letters before as being a type of evidence that can help you demonstrate that you are a person of good moral character. Now, ironically, you would think, well, my friends, my family, and my neighbors know me the best. They are the people who I should get letters from. The problem is, an immigration officer might think, well, your friends and your family and your neighbors, if they care about you, they might be willing to lie for you. And so they are actually maybe treated as having less value as evidence. So I'm not saying they have no value, but for them to be treated as good evidence, they should be notarized. Okay? Taken in front of a notary public and signed under penalty of perjury, then they must be given some consideration as evidence. Now, if you know people well, like doctors, lawyers, dentists, accountants, and so on, that will write a letter of recommendation for you, that's the best. Immigration thinks, okay, people like that are not going to lie. They value their careers and their reputations too much. But if it's possible, letters from those people should be on official letterhead from their business. Okay. If they can't, or aren't allowed to do that, then those should also be notarized. Other good sources for letters of recommendation: ministers, pastors, bishops, religious leaders, so on, or school personnel. If you have been a student or you have children in school, the principal, teachers, and so on are good sources of recommendation letters if they know you well. People that you work for or used to work for are good sources, or other community organizations where you may have volunteered or worked. All of these, if they can, should be on official company letterhead. That's the official form that the company or the organization uses for their correspondence. Again, if they can't do it, then get those notarized like you would for like a letter from a family member. All right, now we've talked about the requirements for applying and being approved. Let's get on and do some practice. We're going to practice reading and writing. So get some paper ready and a pencil or pen, and we'll move ahead with that. Now, what we're going to do, since I can't hear you when you read out loud, so I will read the question first, and then you say it, and then I will say it again, and that is so you can hear my pronunciation and check your own. When you have the reading and writing portion of the test during the interview, there will be a tablet on the desk, and so the officer will say, read the question that's on the tablet in front of you. Okay, and then after you have given a correct reading, you'll have 3 chances. Lines will appear. The screen will go blank and lines will appear, and then you will have to write directly on the tablet using either the writing stylus or pen that they have there, or if they don't have one, you might have to use your finger. So I will read the question and then repeat it out loud. If you're not writing things down and saying them out loud, these lessons are of limited usefulness to you. They're for you to practice. All right. So let's begin. How many senators do we have? Please read the question. Good. How many senators do we have? Now please write. We have 100 senators. We have 100 senators. During your test, you can ask the officer to repeat the question if you didn't hear them clearly the first time. After 2 or 3 times, if you're still not getting it, they're probably going to move on to the next one. And you'll have 3 chances. All right, so go ahead and look here and correct your sentence. Write any changes that you might need to do. Notice that whenever they give you a number, you can write the words 100 or put it in digits. Both are correct. Okay, next. What is the capital of the United States? Please read the question. All right, what is the capital of the United States? Now please write. Washington, D.C. is the capital. Washington, D.C. is the capital. Ready? All right, check your work. Now, the reading and writing that we practice during these classes, you might get the exact same question or statement to read or write during your interview. You might get one that's similar, but different in some ways. You might get one different that we haven't practiced. There are vocabulary lists that you can look at. I'll give you a link at the end of one of our lessons where you can check those out. It is possible that they could change or be added to in the future. I'm recording this in late July of the year 2026. So before you go to take your test, make sure to check for the updated to see if there have been any changes or updates. I've also, especially in some of the new questions, I've created questions that are probably not going to be on your list of potential questions, but they are designed to reinforce what we've learned for the civics test. Okay, next. Who was the first president? Please read the question. Good. Who was the first president? Now please write, Washington was the first president. Washington was the first president. Ready? Okay, go ahead and check your answer. Make any corrections. I will mention that there's a good chance that Washington will be one of the words that you will possibly need to write, because Washington was the first president. Washington, D.C. is the capital. Washington is on the dollar bill. So practice Washington if you don't already know it well, because there is a good chance that you'll need to know it at the interview. Next, what do we pay to the government? Please read it. Okay, what do we pay to the government? And remember, when we're practicing and at your interview, you're supposed to read the question that's in front of you, not answer it. Okay? What do we pay the government to the government? Now please write. We pay taxes. We pay taxes. And this is they won't get any shorter than this. So go ahead and correct your work. Now the spelling does not have to be perfect, but it needs to be understandable. So if you write something like this instead of this, you're not going to pass that question. And you will probably get a much longer one on the next try. So be sure and practice. Don't miss the easy ones if you can. Next, who elects Congress? Please read the question. Good. Who elects Congress? Now please write, the people elect Congress. The people elect Congress. Okay, check your answer. And I'm going to give you a little tip. When you read the question and then you write what you're told to write, you might notice that often what you write is actually the answer to the question that you read. Because of that, sometimes, not always, but sometimes some of the words will be used in the writing that you just saw. So in this case, the question was, who elects Congress? The answer is the people elect Congress. So very similar. And some of them are even more so. So if you can try to think about the words you're seeing, that can help you, because you might need to write some of those same words one moment later. All right, let's practice some of the questions for the civics test, the history and government, and we will practice. So during your test, you won't be reading the questions for the test. You have to listen to the question that the officer asks you, and you have to answer it out loud, speaking. So here for practice, I'm going to have a reminder for you to listen first, and if you know the answer, go ahead and answer it. And if you don't know the answer, I will have in the next slide, I will have the question visible so you can read it, and then that might help you to learn also. But you will need to get a copy of the questions and study them. Just listening to them here might not be enough for you to memorize, or the easiest way. But what you will get from this is practice listening to them from someone who is a native English speaker with an American accent, which is what you will most likely have at your interview. Not necessarily; there could be other accents. Let's begin. The first portion of the test is on the principles of American government. I want to mention to you that anytime you see or hear American, it refers to having to do with United States. Or if it says America, it's talking about the United States. Or what were previously the American colonies, the founding 13 colonies that became the United States. All right, so listen to the question first. What is the form of government of the United States? Answer the question if you know it out loud. You have to practice saying the words. All right, what is the form of government of the United States? And it's like, how is it put together? What type of government, what kind of government is? And there are several possible options that are correct that you can say. You don't need to memorize the whole list. When the study material shows you several possible ways to answer, those are just examples of correct answers. It does not mean you have to memorize the list. You can pick the one that is most simple for you to remember and use that. So republic is one of the correct answers. Or constitution-based federal republic. So a republic essentially is when we the people, elect the people who are going to make the laws and run things. And that word is repeated here. Constitution-based means we have the higher law, the Constitution. Federal means there is a central government in addition to the state governments. It's like the national government. We can call it a representative democracy. Democracy because all citizens can vote, but we are voting not directly on the laws, but on who will represent us. All right, next question. What is the supreme law of the land? Say it out loud if you know it. I actually mentioned it just a minute ago. Here it is in writing. What is the supreme law of the land? The answer is the Constitution. Now, just a note that when you see something in parentheses, that means it's optional. That means you don't have to say that part of it. You could just say the Constitution, and that's a good answer. You don't have to say US or United States if it's in parentheses. Next question. Tell me one thing that the United States Constitution does. Say the answer if you know it. Now, name one thing the United States Constitution does. Now, you might notice that I said, tell me instead of name. So I will also help you practice for the fact that the officer might not use the exact same words that you've studied. It might be a little bit different. They might read it exactly the same way. Maybe they're going by memory and they say it approximately the same way. You need to understand the meaning, not focus on just memorizing the words. Here it says US, I said United States. So I said, tell me one thing the United States Constitution does. In the study materials, it says, name one thing the U.S. Constitution does. It's the same question, just a different way of asking it. Again, understand the meaning, don't just memorize the words. Forms the government, defines the powers of the government, defines the parts of the government, protects the rights of the people. Remember, you don't have to memorize the whole list. It asks you to name one thing the Constitution does. So just pick the one that you can remember the best and use that as your answer. Next, the Constitution starts with the words, we the people. What does we the people mean? Okay, have you answered yet? The Constitution starts or begins with the words, we the people. We the people. What does we the people mean? Here it's asking for a definition. Okay. Refers to self-government, popular sovereignty, just kind of a fancier word, fancier phrase for the same thing. Self-government means we govern ourselves, the people. Popular sovereignty means the people are in charge. A sovereign is like a king or a boss. So popular sovereignty means the people pick who's in charge. Consent of the governed. So we consented, we gave our permission for what the government is doing. And remember, you don't need the whole list. These are just examples of correct answers. You pick one. The people should govern themselves. This is kind of just a rephrasing of what we've already said. As an example of a social contract. Now remember, the words in parentheses are optional. You don't have to say them to get the correct answer. When this version of the test came out, I wasn't familiar with this phrase, social contract. So I had to look it up to see what it meant. And it goes back to what the philosophers were writing about when this country was founded, and it was the idea that government should not be because some powerful person conquered and made themselves the king and they're the boss. It should be a contract or an agreement that society makes. The people make an agreement on how things should operate, how they should be run. So that's what they mean by social contract. Next question. How are changes made to the Constitution? Answer if you know. How are changes made to the Constitution? Through amendments. Amendments, or the amendment process. means the same thing. An amendment is a change or an addition to the Constitution. Those have to be passed by Congress, and then the states, a majority of the states have to approve those for them to take effect. Okay, what does the Bill of Rights protect? Answer if you know. What does the Bill of Rights protect? The basic rights of Americans, the basic rights of people living in the United States. Okay. When they wrote the Constitution originally didn't say anything about the rights of the people, and they had discussion about that, and some of them felt that the rights of the people were obvious. Everybody understood the rights of the people. Others said, no, it's better to write them down and make them part of the Constitution. So that's what they did. And the first 10 amendments they passed all had to do with the rights of the people. And they call it the Bill of Rights. A bill is a proposed law that hasn't become law yet. Of course, now it is law, but the name Bill of Rights had already become popular, and it still is called that. Right. How many amendments have there been to the Constitution? Say it if you know. How many amendments does the Constitution have? Notice again, I said how many amendments have there been to the Constitution instead of how many amendments does the Constitution have. I just put it in past tense instead of present tense, but understand the concepts. Understand the concepts. Don't focus on memorizing words. Do you know the answer? All right, 27. Okay, why is the Declaration of Independence important? Why is the Declaration of Independence important? And again, there are a number of correct answers you can use. One is plenty. One is enough. The Declaration of Independence says that America is free from British control. British refers to the people from Great Britain, or the English. It says, the Declaration of Independence says that all people are created equal. That's one of the things that makes it important. It identifies inherent rights. Inherent means that they're natural rights, that everybody has them. It identifies individual freedoms. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness is the famous phrase from the Declaration of Independence. All right. Next question. What founding document said the American colonies were free from Britain? What founding document said the American colonies were free from Britain? You should know this because we just talked about it 1 minute ago. The Declaration of Independence. Okay. Next question. Tell me 2 important ideas from the Declaration of Independence and the U.S. Constitution. Tell me or name 2 important ideas from the Declaration of Independence and the U.S. Constitution. So pay attention to a couple of things here. They want two things. And on this question, they want an idea that was mentioned in the Declaration of Independence and mentioned in the Constitution. So listen carefully to the questions before you answer. Many officers, if you won't give you a chance to correct yourself if you start to make a mistake. So listen carefully. Ask them to repeat it if you're not sure. So here are the options. Equality. Ideas mentioned in both the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. Liberty. So equality means everybody has equal rights. Liberty means everybody's free. Social contract. Remember that one? We talked about it a few minutes ago. The idea that government should be a contract that society makes, so the people make the agreement on how the government should work. Remember, you need two to pass this question. Natural rights. That's pretty much the same thing as inherent rights that was mentioned previously. A right that every human has naturally, is born with, that should be obvious. Limited government. That's in both the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, the idea that government should not have supreme power. There should be limits, there should be restrictions on its power. Okay. Now, for our last slide in this first class, I want you to remember something, and I used Spanish here. So if your first language is not Spanish, you can just ignore that. If your first language is Spanish, there's another list of videos that you can look at and watch where I explain all the concepts in Spanish, but practice in English. So if you have had difficulty understanding me and your first language is Spanish, go check out those videos on YouTube. It's a different playlist. Or if you have Spanish-speaking friends who are preparing for their citizenship test, you can have them look there too. But pay attention to the first word of the question they ask you. So, who? That you know they want, it's a person. If they say, who wrote the Declaration of Independence? It's Thomas Jefferson, but you know the answer is a person, not a date. If they say, what? What is an amendment? You know, it's a thing, not an amendment is a change to the Constitution. You know, it's a thing, not a person, not a date. When? When is a time. When is Independence Day? July 4th, 1776. Okay, if it starts with when, they're looking for a date or a year or a period of time. Where? It's a place. Where is the Statue of Liberty? It's in New York. It's a place. How? How was a thing done? How was it accomplished? How did the slaves become free? Abraham Lincoln freed them in the Emancipation Proclamation. So it's some sort of action or process or explanation required there. Why? You want an explanation. You might say, why did the United States enter World War II? It was to stop, to oppose Japan, Germany, and Italy in Europe, for example. Why? It's a reason, an explanation. How many is a number. How many original colonies were there? 13. So when you're taking the test, listen to the first word. Often the first word will be one of these. And if you hear it properly and interpret it properly, that will help you. So thank you for your attention, and we'll have more videos posted promptly. And good luck in preparing for and taking your citizenship test.